Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our new day and time.
I have so many meetings on my calendar, I don't think I noticed.
Oh, well, that's too bad, or that's okay.
It's okay. The actually the other OCP meetings I attend are weekly, and or no, they're not. The storage one isn't always weekly, but the security one
Mm.
is weekly, and they've never moved the time slot
Ah, good
in
for
years.
them.
Yeah, that's a big meeting. There'll be like 35 to 40 people in each meeting.
Oh yeah, it's a big deal. How was your holiday?
It was good. I needed the holiday because I had to take a little leave for something that got me pretty hard. So I recovered, and the weekend was a nice way to take a break without missing work.
Ah, okay. Yeah, it is nice to know, like, I'm not at work and I'm not gathering a million actions and emails while I'm not there. So I see Divya's joining us. I got an email from Shruti that she would not be able to attend. And I got an email from, I think, David from IBM. Um, that he also cannot attend. So it could be just us.
Hi everyone. Hi Deb. Hey
Hello.
Ari.
Hello, hey Divya.
Hello, Alua. I hope I said that right. If you're speaking, we can't hear you. All right, so I think we can get started. I'm putting in the chat the link to the minutes. I will start another minutes for next year, but for now we're still plowing along with the old one. I'm also going to share it. Um, if I can remember how to do so. Share screen. All right, so I guess I should also include the link to the current white paper. All right, so just to recap where we are. So we've moved the meeting time. Ari said he didn't even notice, but so it's now Tuesdays, 3 p.m. East Coast, noon Pacific. The OCP calendar has been updated. I sent an invite from my work calendar as well because it seemed that cancellations from the OCP calendar was just not working. So some of you will, you know, you have your choice. You can either use the one that I sent or use the one off the OCP calendar. I had a couple of ARs for myself around administrivia for OCP that I have punted off until December, which is now coming soon. So we'll see if I actually really need to do these things, and if so, how to do them. But for now, I just put them there as a reminder. So just as a refresher on the working group purpose, so our name is carbon modeling. So far, we have focused completely on the modeling embodied carbon for the data center IT equipment. But we did get the responsibility coming out of the OCP summit of also doing some work on operational carbon, in particular, understanding the grid carbon intensity. So for that one, you know, I think that if we could, the data center facilities people would like a presentation sooner rather than later. So I may or may not just pump one out and just, you know, invite everybody to the meeting, or else if we have some time, we can go through an outline together. But the longer term view would be that we would create a white paper for operational carbon from the OCP perspective. But then
Deb,
turning back, yeah.
actually, so had a question. Did we get any feedback on the white paper so far, or just like any reception on what what we are trying to achieve in that existing embodied carbon modeling paper?
So I think that we've asked people for reviews, and we've taken their feedback and for the most part incorporated it. Shruti she would like ours to be included, referenced by some other spec around storage. So if we release it by February of next year, then that would work for that other group's timeline. So that's sort of putting some pressure on us to get it done. I would say that what we haven't, you know, our ability to get test cases, it has not been going well. And, you know, that's to me is a big part of feedback, would be to, you know, get somebody to give us some information, see what they're willing to give us, how it stands up to the level of detail that we're looking for, et cetera.
Yeah, I meant
We've also been
feed.
working a lot on the grading. So to just sort of see how that, but I think otherwise, you know, hopefully we can try to do, even if, since we're not getting anything, I have started the process within Intel. You know, we might do like some synthetic examples, just to take it for a test run. And I think also if we put out some synthetic data and it's, you know, that might encourage people to show more details. So we'll, you know, we'll see about that. But yeah, in general, I would say there still seems to be a lot of reluctance to sharing information, even old generation. Yeah, there's some other things I can say to you, Divya, when we're not
Yeah. I meant sort of OCP has a wide range of stakeholders, right? And obviously not everybody is represented on this forum working group. But hope, I mean, I thought there was a small note on about this working group as well at the conference. So I was just curious if companies like Samsung or other companies that make SSDs and other IC products, if we got any feedback from some of those suppliers.
So I was not able to attend the summit, and I had asked people that were there to, fish around and see if we could find anybody. And so I've not heard any positive outcomes from that.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's, like I said, there's more things when we're not being recorded that I could talk through with you. But you just, I don't know.
And since we have Ari on the line, right? I mean, Ari, you are from Seagate, like, you have seen this, right? Does this make sense? I mean, I'm assuming that you're you're gonna, this would be from not just your personal this thing, but also from your use cases that you see at Seagate. This are included in this white paper.
Yes, I was just, I think this is a good start at a high level. When we look at sustainability, we have this like really complex spreadsheet that goes through products, sub-products, business information. I'm going to see if I can share this. It came from an thesis, but there's a note that it might be something they share and allow us to share out, and it has like some of these I don't understand. Quick query list, homogeneous materials, substances, which is really important for us because of coming requirements from, especially from the EU, things like PFAS.
Yeah.
It has a whole tab for recycling. Data summary with all kinds of fields to fill out. And this is the type of like really intensive work that we do with helping Enthesis out to do our LCAs. So yeah, there's this note here that the Seagate compliance data collection form is available for use free of charge to all. So I'm gonna confirm that, and then I'll share it out.
Excellent. That would be good.
Yeah.
We have talked many times about we're not doing full LCA.
Yeah.
We're just doing components that then could feed into a much more complete LCA.
Yeah, and I think you wouldn't use this full spreadsheet, but parts of it might be useful for seeing how others compile data.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and Thesis is kind of like your vendor, if you will, Ari?
They are, and I'm trying to find contacts there that I can invite to this group. I even noticed one. I think they're based out of London, England, but I noticed one consultant that's here in Seattle. So I may reach out to her, but I want to find out who on our side talks to them first. I'll try and find that out tonight.
Okay, I'm giving you the AR.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Great. Awesome.
That would be really good. All right, I did want to just catch you up, Divya. You can, if it's not readable, you can go to the minutes and look. This summit recap was from Shruti.
Mhm.
So they kind of had a little, birds of a feather. So the only person here that I don't know is Andrea. So
Right.
I don't know what company she represented, but so these were sort of the items that came out of that discussion.
Mhm.
So the LCA and the circularity, I guess a big thing with the LCA is iMasons. They were at our little workshop and then they were at the summit, and they very, very much want to collaborate on doing um, the analogy would be a nutrition label on your food that says, how
Mhm.
much vitamin A, how much protein or whatever.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
want to do something analogous to that for a computer. So we're looking to start an OCP workstream to work with iMasons. They're looking for people to head that up. That's the
So this
last
would
I
be like
saw.
so what's the unit they are going to be targeting? Is it like a rack, like, or a server box, or I mean,
That
what
then we'll
is?
have to figure that out,
Ah, huh.
right? That will be,
Because
some work stream that's, working with iMasons. I know the
yeah.
EU already has that label.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Is that what you were thinking of?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, EU already has that label, right? And so yeah, I wasn't sure if they are thinking on the same lines or
Yep, so you should go to that. When that
okay.
working group gets started, you can go and show
Okay,
them the
no, no,
EU
yeah,
label
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
as a starting point or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, and
Um,
then I see IMEC's name on that, right? But did the group provide any feedback on where that could go or how they would want to take that up with IMEC and similarly with MIT?
yeah, see, I wasn't there in person. Do you remember,
Hmm.
Ari? Perhaps we
I
should
don't,
wait till we have Shruti here.
yeah, I think Shree's probably the better one. I was caught between the security track and the sustainability track were happening at the same time, unfortunately for me. So
Hmm.
I wasn't there for the entire time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I will
So,
say that all the presentations have been up for a couple weeks now.
yeah,
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah, but I haven't gotten to yours yet. I've been slowly in my copious free time working my way through.
my security one was probably more interesting than my sustainability talk.
Oh, now you tell me. All right. So, yeah. So I think you're for the most part caught up, Divya. So
Yeah.
let's go. I might do a synthetic example based on, a cost model maybe for an older Intel product and see what that looks like. And that could be somewhat interesting as a starting point. So let's go to the white paper itself. So um, we had somebody kind of like jump into the meeting and
Yeah, I was looking through the grading criteria.
we're
Yeah.
slow. It's in multiple places, but
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
show you what. So what kind of a big change that I made to try to make things more clear was I went to 3 examples
Mhm.
rather than just putting the full picture out there from the get-go. So I started out with a simple example of just one package with one chiplet. Then the second example is one package with 5 chiplets. And the third example would be more like a DDR DIMM. So I changed the pictures to show more simply the first example.
Mm-hmm.
And then I repeated it for the second and the third. So, verbiage to talk it through, and then, excuse me, sort of an example of what would be in some of the metadata, the relevant metadata. And then said, okay, well, to calculate, for this example, the embodied carbon, and I just used numbers like SS and TT rather than putting
Yeah.
real numbers there, just to
Mm-hmm.
show. So I showed location and market, and then to calculate the grade. I don't know if you were here when we went through all the work to say that we need to normalize the grades. So we're basically um, um, yeah, we'll normalize the grade. So even if you have, we can go down to the next example. In that example, we have, let's see here. I can get it all on one page. So we have 1 copy of one chiplet and 4 copies of another chiplet. And so I also tried to color code the pointers to the data just to make things more clear.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what you see is that based on that, when you're calculating the carbon, you would multiply by 4 or by 1, right? But then when you're doing the grade, you would normalize it by, and divide it by the number of unique chiplets or the number of unique ICs. So it just meant that, like, if there's a chiplet that there's 20 copies, that the grade for isn't multiplied by 20.
Mm-hmm.
You just got, for each, you normalize it by the number of copies. So
Yeah.
that was a conversation we had. I don't know if that's when you were still here
No,
or
I
not.
wasn't. Yeah, I was out. So this is
So that's the normalization piece. And so here we're back to the picture, the fuller picture that we started with. So the table is just much more,
yeah,
much
represented.
larger. And so,
Right.
and for the grades, I just sort of put random numbers here just to show that how the grading works.
Got it.
So then what we're working through now would be, how are we actually going to do this grading? And so this,
So now, wait. So one minute. So then, going back to the iMasons conversation,
uh-huh.
right? They want to create a grade. This could be something that they could leverage at a high,
In the fullness of time,
yeah.
the problem is, like we said, right now, we don't have anybody actually using it.
Mm-hmm.
So, they might say, like, say they decide to do it at a motherboard level, they might just give points, if you even tried, right? Versus going, getting to this level of depth. And then, maybe over time,
Mm-hmm.
as we get more information and more things are graded, they could include that.
Okay.
I mean, we'll have to see what their
Yeah.
timeline
What they are
is,
interested, right, and what the timeline.
what we're actually able to accomplish ourselves here,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So, but kind of what it comes down to for the grading would be that for each aspect, so if it's the daughter card, the, let's just go back to an example. So since the most you would have, the way that we cut the problem is one daughter card, you would just have one grade for the daughter card. Then and then depending on the number of unique packages, you would have a grade across all those packages normalized based on the number of packages. And then you would have a grade for every chiplet normalized for the total number of chiplets. So basically you would have 3 grades. And if there's no daughter card, obviously you wouldn't have a grade for that. But you would just get a grade across, going back to the picture. You would give a grade across all your wafer fabs, and then a grade across all your assembly and tests, which in this case is just one. Versus for the more complicated picture, it would be a grade for all your wafer fabs. In this case, again, just 2, and then a normalized grade across your 2 different assembly and test. And then a grade for your daughter card. So I guess that's kind of something to think about.
Yeah, this one, I mean, this one has grading at 3 different levels, right?
This has
The-
grading at 3 levels. Everything else has grading at 2 levels, right? So everything else will have at least one wafer fab and at least one assembly and test, right?
Yeah,
So everything will have a wafer fab grading and assembly and test grading.
Mhm.
Just a question of how many wafer fabs were combined in the
Right,
grade, how many assembly and tests.
right. And since this
Um,
daughter card is one more level up, that's why
Yeah,
you have 3 grading levels.
exactly.
Yeah.
Ex-
Okay. So then
So
if
the thing is,
using the
can I
same,
just say, if we rolled them all together, then the daughter card, if you have a daughter card, it would look like you're getting perhaps a higher grade just because you got some points on the daughter card. So we don't, that doesn't seem right. I guess, another thing we could do is we could do one number and normalize it to,
yeah,
number of daughter card vendors, number of assembly and tests. So we
yes,
could we could
yeah,
actually land on one number.
on one number. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
we
because I
could do
think
that.
ultimately, if we think about, you are basically going through system of systems, right? And so for the PCB vendor or the OEM who is going to use this, right? They may not care about how many levels or how much details of the grading we have. They might just care about one number for the overall the daughter card they've got or the CPU on a package they have got, right? So if you think about that end user who is going to use this, they only care about one number.
Yeah. So we certainly can do that. We can move to
Yeah.
one grade and normalize it
Mm.
so that designs that don't include a daughter card are not impacted. We certainly could do that. It's going to be hard enough
Yes.
as it is, but
Right.
we certainly could propose that as the
Yeah.
cleanest thing. It's just giving one grade, as long as we do that level of normalization. So I can certainly take that AR. So so now what comes down to is for each one of those steps, when you're grading it, the way that I outlined it is you would have a scope 1 grade, a scope 2 grade, a supply chain grade, and then other, overall is probably not the, maybe miscellaneous grade would be a better name for this category. And so you would add these all up, right, to get the grade for that step in manufacturing. So what we haven't really talked through very yet is like, what would the components and the points be for each one of these? So I've sort of started to put a outline here for something. So maybe we could talk this through and I could live edit it. I haven't yet gotten the overall or the miscellaneous in the format for this. So for scope 1, I just sort of said, you get a point if you claim that, somehow you tried to include it. So if this was done by a researcher that has no way to figure this out, there would be no point added. You just don't know about scope 1 per se. And then so you get a point if you made an effort, tried to break it out, and then you could get some other number of points for the methodology that was used. So I just put here, annual measuring or annual estimation. I don't know if there are other ways of doing that and how many points we would want to give them. So so any thoughts on scope 1?
So, I mean, this could be like, based on, a tops down or a bottoms up. Those are the kind of options you would have with the scope 1.
Well, for bottoms up,
Or
as far as I know, nobody would take every single packaged
yeah,
part as it comes off the assembly line and
right,
say, yep, you were in ATM for
yeah,
28 hours and
right, right,
for those 28 hours here, it's
right.
just nobody, it would be too much. So I'm
Too
going to
much.
say
Yeah,
nobody does it
yeah,
on a per part basis. So then it comes down to, how are you going to report and allocate, report, etc. Your
right.
scope 1s.
So should this be like allocation? I mean, even within the allocation, it could be an allocation based on cost, or it could be an allocation based on volume. Would you consider that?
So yeah, I mean that could be that, so that could be I
I mean,
mean they
no, don't
must
want, we don't need
be.
to complicate it, but if there's no reason to complicate it, but yeah, if it makes sense, then this could be.
What I thought was the critical thing is, is this measured or is it, estimated, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I assumed it's annual. For the allocation, do you get points for saying that you allocate it? I think you have to allocate it, unless we want to say that's some.
I mean, even the
allocation.
measured one, where for which you have +2 is also some kind of a, I mean, you measure it for the company, you allocate it based on something, right? So measured, there's no direct one way to measure it, right? So what in your mind, how are you separating measured versus estimated? They're both kind of estimation at different kinds, right? And that's why I was coming to the question,
Well, yeah. I mean, so one question is, do you have a, gauge sitting on every place where you're emitting scope 1 and measuring it? And,
then
you
that goes
know,
back to that question of bottoms up versus tops down, and we just talked about it, that no one, you cannot do bottoms up.
oh, no, but you would be summing it up for the year, right? So do you have, right? So I guess that, did you go to tool vendor X and say, per hour that I'm running your tool, roughly how much, SF3 will be emitted or whatever, right? And they'll give you some number. They'll say, oh, it's, whatever. And so you just multiply it out. And so that, I would say that would be like an estimated, right? Or you go measure it one day in one facility and just kind of say, okay, that's what
In
it's going to be? Or do you actually have, every place where there's an emission, you have a gauge that's measuring it before it goes up the
that
stack?
sounds like it's going to need a lot of guidance on what do you mean by measured versus estimated.
Hmm. So is this just too much? Do we want to just say, did you include it or not include it? If you included it, you got a point. However you figured it out is up to you. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think that including measured and estimated, I mean, we've already talked about the complexity of doing that. So maybe I think just included versus not included should
All
suffice.
right,
This is going to need a lot more
I'm
explanation
good
of.
with that. So, all right, so moving on, we can have the same types of discussions around scope 2.
Okay.
So, but scope 2 has the location versus the market. So, um, you could just be giving a number and
Where
not saying which one it is. You could be giving two numbers, saying this is
I see.
location number, this is the market number, or you could be giving just a location number or just a market
Mm-hmm.
number.
That looks good.
So 1 point for each one of those is included. Now we're getting into the muck of the quality of the market.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
the thing is that I was hoping to stay away from this, but now that we have the operational
Mm-hmm.
um, thing, I think we're going to have to
Address this at some level.
address it. So, one thing is you could get a point if you meet the RE100 technical criteria. Um, there could be, also, the WRI, what is it, 2015 criteria? I'm just throwing things out here and then we can debate them all. WRI, let's say, when are they going to come out? Let's say that they come out with it in
2022, 23.
2025. They're
Okay.
debating it this
Okay.
year. I'm thinking of what else. Perhaps, possibly if we look at the RE100, there could be I guess the other thing that comes up, which falls under the RE 100, is just the whole vintage thing. What else? Let's get them all down and then we can debate them. I mean, the problem is probably with the 2025, we don't know. Are they gonna call 24/7? Are they gonna call that market-based, or are they gonna give that a different name, right?
Yeah, and this could also be there's a number of third-party providers, right? So this could be based on a number, on a third party's quality. So you want to probably have a placeholder for that.
Give me an example.
Third party place. Let me. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the names. Give me a minute. Yeah, I'll put the names in the chat window in a minute. Yes. So yeah, there's a certification called Green E certification. And I have to look up the name that Intel uses itself. I'm just completely blanking out, but I'll put that in the chat window as I find.
So this is like the assurance?
Yeah. For green energy.
Well, there's RE 100.
Yeah, but there's a number of players, third-party players coming into the market, Deb. I mean, it's rapidly moving.
So, all right, so let's read down. So I did put third-party verified down.
I mean, we could keep it agnostic of which third party it is, but all I meant was to have a placeholder for third party, which you got that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get rid of that name. You already have that third party listed there.
Right. The reason why I called out RE 100 technical criteria is that, RE 100 does lay out, reminds me.
Yeah, RE 100 is kind of a non-profit, so I would call it a different. It's a non-commercial at some level in my mind versus the third parties, which are commercial third-party vendors.
Right. There's the whole with the legislation in California. Everybody's trying to understand what does this third-party assurance process look like and who can do it, right? The reason why I said RE 100 technical criteria is that they did pull in, they say, look, here's the, priority order for getting your recs or your goes. But, number one would be, I can't remember exactly, but it's like on site, and then it's PPAs and, unbundled RECs are allowed, but they're lower. And then it does have a vintage in the RE100 technical criteria. So that's why I threw that. I thought they did a decent job of saying, just saying your WRI 2015, here's technical criteria to actually do that if you're a large corporation.
Okay.
So it's possible, that saying the 2015 criteria and the RE100 is duplication. I think there's also something on EP now around vintage, right?
I haven't seen EPEAT recently, so they might have.
I think maybe somebody was adding vintage to their criteria as beyond the RE100 adding vintage. It's just, while we're in this place of waiting for greenhouse gas protocol to update, so folks are saying, well, we can at least improve on the 2015. Mostly people seem to be doing it around vintage. So third party, we talked about that below, right? We're just saying, right? We said, we have a third party verified assured for everything. So I also thought about, the concepts of batteries. I guess if you have, and then other, just other microgrid scenarios. So I'm wondering if these just come out because, right, the
No,
way
I don't
it could,
understand. Why would you include battery in here? I mean, I kind of have a sense, but I want to hear what you're thinking around that.
so I'll put it instead under like as a subset of the microgrid scenarios. There's many. So if you have industrial scale batteries in your data center, the whole microgrid idea is that rather than just being a consumer, you can also be a supplier. So I actually might have a picture of this. Yeah. So I don't know, we might be getting way into the weeds here. But so this is showing the white thing is your data center with all your racks. And then it's showing that in addition to like the dark green is your connection to the utility, but you also could have different types of storage, creation and storage, like they're saying the biomass, the gas, wind farm, solar farm. You could have that all as part of your data center. And then if you see the dark green, the arrows go both ways, right? So you can, when the grid is clean, you can choose to take energy from the grid. When the grid needs energy from the data center, you can choose to supply it. Slash, you can choose to lessen your load to help the grid with the peak. So it's all of these ideas are being talked about. So, I mean, this is a data center picture, but you could choose to do a microgrid on a factory as well, right? So it's the same idea.
Yeah.
Large power draw, you know, wanting, the ability to go to, make money as well as spend money with
Mhm.
your utilities and the ability to create and store your own energy. So that's all the microgrid stuff.
Yeah, in this
So,
presentation, do they have a real life example?
so again, this is very data center focused.
Yeah.
I do believe they talked about um, you know, they had multiple projects that they're working on. So they talked about, kind of in aggregate, again, for data centers, not for factories.
Correct.
Sorry, I just forgot who they is. Is this the,
This is just a presentation on microgrids that I went to.
okay, okay.
Um, so again, it was data center focused, but there's all the concepts apply to a large factory, be it a wafer
Semi
fab,
IC wafer fab or
assembly,
an ATM.
a
Okay.
test, or,
Mhm.
cement, or,
Yeah,
any
yeah.
kind of industrial or even chemical. So, they gave a Sankey chart on 90 megawatt, and, kind of how that all plays out. And then they kind of showed what it could look like. Um, and, and they talked about the different types of gases they could use, and they're trying to sell their energy management system. So a
Mm-hmm,
lot of
mm-hmm.
it was, so this is Anjani, talking about their system for your microgrid associated with your facility. And they had somebody do a TCO thing that said that it actually looked pretty good, if you believe, right? This person's spreadsheet, which they show you very little. So I think maybe all of this stuff is for the future,
Yeah, it's a cost right now for everyone.
but as far as the grading goes, I'm back to the,
Yeah. Yep.
do we want to just say, so if we take out the microgrid stuff, so now we're down to, is there something similar to RE100, but likewise useful, some set of criteria? I think I'm gonna delete the 2025 criteria since we don't know what that's gonna be. So then it would just be if my memory is serving me right. And then I guess saying the 2015 criteria, is that sort of, what's the word? Is that redundant? If you're just reporting market, you got a point, so you don't need another point here.
Oh, I see. I see. No, I suppose, I mean, it could be any criteria and, and then you could get a point, right? I don't know if at this
It's
point
like
we have
I did my own version of market.
yeah, it could be RE100. You could put those options like the way you have already, right? Either one could trigger a point.
But they already got 1 point for saying, well, I gave you a market number.
Yeah, but this one is more on the quality of market.
Exactly.
Uh,
So we're
oh,
saying that,
so if you had one of these, then you get a +1.
All right, and it's possible somebody could meet all three.
Yeah, that would just mean it's a better quality.
All right. So let's leave it at that for now. And then the method. So we already kind of decided that the method's not useful. So I think we can just get rid of that. All right, so we're doing good. We got 4 minutes. So scope 3, upstream scope 3, I said you get a point if it's 50%, and then 2 points if it's 75%. In other words, the deeper you go into your supply, your tier 1 supply chain, the more points you get.
I see. Well, this is a good start, I would say, Deb, but this might be, I mean, this might need revision as things change, right? I mean, this is a good start with 50% tier 1, 25% tier 1. Okay.
Let's just look at the next line too, and then we can talk about all of upstream. So if there's any attempt at all to talk about tier 2 plus supply chain, then I mean, I think that's a lot of work, so I gave it 2 points.
Okay.
It has to be some kind of a modeling
Yeah.
or working with all your suppliers to understand their suppliers, etc. It's pretty tough. So that's why I put 2 points on that. So any other thoughts on supply chain grading?
I mean, supply chain could be a whole thing in its own, right? Like how they are certified. I mean, there's quite a few things with supply chain, but I mean, we don't
Well, why
want to
don't you throw them
complicate it.
out and we can.
Yeah, let me think about it. What other criterias could be part of this one?
Okay.
That's simple enough and doesn't overcomplicate it.
Okay. So, and then this overall or the miscellaneous category. So we already kind of covered market and location. So unless anybody objects, I'm going to delete those here. It looks like that's redundant. The next thing, we were talking about this in the last meeting, is if you got all your data from databases, she was saying, more recent databases are better, so you should get credit for that.
Yep, that makes sense.
Then the next one would be, calculated not using a database.
I mean, can you give an example?
Yeah, so like if Intel actually reported what we know internally, right? We don't use databases, we calculate everything, right? We measure and we calculate, right? Versus other people just look up in some database and say, IC chip of, these dimensions or whatever, right?
I see.
Manufactured in this country, right? They just look it up in a database. So,
Okay.
Shruti wanted to give, so though, those people probably wouldn't get any of the other points, right? Because they just don't know. They just looked it up, right? But
Right.
she was saying, well, at least if they tried to get a recent database rather than, something that's been sitting out there for 25 years, we
Yeah,
can give them
yeah.
a point.
Okay.
So maybe the thing of not using databases, maybe that's why I sort of had that at some point, the things we've been deleting of calculated versus
Yeah,
measured.
estimated. Measured.
So I don't know. We'll have to think about this. I think we all liked the third party assurance. And then just because I really like it, if the company has science-based targets. I've seen this someplace else. I can't remember if it was EP or not. All right, we are over.
Okay.
I did just want to bring up, or maybe I'll just send it out in the minutes, that for December, I will definitely cancel for the 26th, and I possibly will cancel for the 19th as well, and then I think for the 2nd of January, probably will cancel as well. So just a heads up on that. All righty, thank you for all your input. It was great.
Thank you, Deb.
Bye.
See you later.
Thanks, everybody.
See you.